Welcome to the Engage webinar series from the Mid-Hudson Library System. My name is Rebecca Smith-Aldridge. I'm the coordinator for library sustainability here at the Mid-Hudson Library System. And the Engage webinar series is designed to shine a light on those libraries doing an excellent job with community engagement in a variety of venues. Today we're joined by Daniela Police, the director of the Pleasant Valley Free Library, and Courtney Wimmers, assistant librarian at the Pleasant Valley Free Library. Courtney spends her time working on special projects, programming, and social media. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Great. So today we've asked Daniela and Courtney to join us because we noticed they are absolutely killing it on Instagram. Instagram is a social networking app made for sharing photos and videos from a smartphone. It's very similar to Facebook or Twitter. Everyone who creates an Instagram account has a profile and a news feed. When you post a photo or video on Instagram, it's displayed on your profile. Other users who follow you see your posts in their own feed. Likewise, you'll see posts from other users whom you choose to follow. It's been described as a simplified version of Facebook with an emphasis on mobile use and visual sharing. The Pew Research Center has found Instagram is popular with a younger generation. Nearly 60% of Americans aged 18 to 29, roughly the millennial generation, use the platform. As we said, we keep an eye on most of our library's social media channels, and we have to say the Pleasant Valley Library has really stood out on Instagram. So we're excited to hear about all the techniques they're using to engage with a maximum number of people on Instagram. So my understanding is to get us started today, Courtney, you've prepared a little presentation to help orient us to some of your best practices and tips that you have for libraries that they could learn from your experience in Instagram. Is that right?
That's right. So I can get started with that. So thank you for that lovely introduction, Rebecca. As she said, I'm Courtney Wimmers, and I really developed an interest in social media when I was working on my master's degree, and I wanted to start an Instagram account for our library, and Daniela was nice enough to say yes. So I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about our account in particular. Right now, roughly, we have over 1,500 followers. We've posted over 250 pictures. I try very hard to post at least once a day on our profile, and it's existed since January 14th, 2017. And since that date, we've had over 19,825 engagements with our profile, which when I did the math to figure that out, I was actually kind of shocked. So you can see this is basically the basic Instagram layout. You have your photo feed. We put a little blurb about us creating community, and along with our web address. So Rebecca asked me to talk about what some of our most popular posts are, and I use this website called Simply Measure to look at our analytics and figure out which posts really do well. So this is our number of engagements between August and October. We've had over 7,500. And we can see that our most engaging post, not really surprisingly, was with the solar eclipse. It received 223 engagements. Our second most popular post was this photo of our new shelver. And our third most popular was just this really pretty library-themed art. So what this kind of tells me is that our followers like content that is current and relevant to themselves and the library. I highly suggest using an analytics program to help you figure out which posts are the most popular. It can make a big difference in what you decide to post on your profile. So I wanted to also provide some examples of follower interactions. In this first one, I posted this photo of our basement. It's kind of a mess, but to be fair, we were preparing for our book sale. And this patron, the second comment from the bottom, posted that she had some that she needed to drop off. So our post on Instagram reminded her that she needed to drop off books to donate. So that's one example of how you can engage with and help your patrons through Instagram. You can see I commented, "Yay, you can drop them off anytime." And then I responded with our typical donation spiel. In this next one, we were tagged by one of our followers to do this book color tag challenge. So basically the idea was that you post a bunch of books of a certain color and then tag other people to do it. And it's just like a fun little interactive thing that you can do on Instagram. So we did it. And then we nominated 3 other users to do it. So this is just another example of the type of follower interactions that you can have. It's not just about commenting or liking or things like that. You can also do fun little challenges. And in this last one, our program post was featured on a local page, traditionally haunted. They follow things that are mysterious in the Hudson Valley and post things about that. So they shared our photo, and I thought that was awesome. Not only that, when I commented on their post, thanks for the repost, they commented local love, and I really liked that because it's important not to ignore these types of interactions, because Instagram is all about engaging with your patrons in an online community. And not just patrons, but also local organizations and interest groups and things like that. So I just wanted to show some of our kind of successful interactions that we've done on our profile, and highlight that it's important not to ignore them. So Instagram decides what to show users based on an algorithm, much like Facebook. This basically means that when you get a lot of engagements on a post, Instagram is more likely to make it a priority in your follower and patrons' feeds. So there are a couple of tips that I figured out that you can use to help kind of tip the algorithm in your favor. And my tip number 1 is to use hashtags. Hashtags allow for your content to show up in people's searches, and I always use the hashtags PV Library and Pleasant Valley Library, so if someone searches for us, their post will appear. You can also use more popular hashtags like Photo of the Day or Instagood, and people will be more likely to see your posts and like them if you use more hashtags. This increased engagement will then bump your post higher up on your patrons' Instagram feeds, so they're more likely to see it. It's important to know that Instagram limits users to 30 hashtags in a photo description, and if you go over it, it considers it spam and deletes your whole description, and I figured that out the hard way, so it's important to limit yourself to 30. Otherwise, you'll have to rewrite everything. My second tip is to post engaging content. If you post a photo along with a question, it encourages people to comment on your post. For example, we posted this photo for Banned Books Week, asking if anybody had read the Scary Stories series, and got a bunch of responses. We also posted this photo for Banned Books Weeks, asking if anybody had read this graphic novel, and we got a whole range of responses from I love, love, love this book, and wouldn't categorize it as spectacular. So just by asking people, like, have you read this, or like, what's your favorite genre, or things like that, it encourages people to interact with your posts. I see a lot of libraries post program flyers and just like event announcements, and this is fine, but I really recommend posting what's known as like fluffy content too, which is kind of like the silly, maybe behind the scenes, pop culture stuff, because people are more likely to engage with that. And when you post your program flyer, since they've engaged with all your fluffy posts, they'll be more likely to see your event announcements and things like that because of the algorithms. So my third tip is to engage with other users' content. Instagram users tend to like reciprocation. If you like someone's photo in your feed, they'll see your name in their notification screen and hopefully go like some of your photos. The additional likes increase your priority in your patrons' feed. So for example, there's this user on Instagram that posted this awesome creepy photo, and I commented suitably spooky. And just like little things like that, it increases a sense of community, which is really important. I also highly recommend engaging with local businesses on Instagram by commenting on or liking their posts. This local business owner shared this photo of their child. We did face painting for them during Pleasant Valley weekend, and they thanked us for the super cool Pokeball. And I commented back, "You're welcome. Thanks for stopping by yesterday." And again, this is a local business, so this really increases the sense of community both online and off. Speaking of increasing the sense of community, I wanted to give an example of promotion and outreach that we did. We ran a successful Instagram photo contest during Pleasant Valley weekend this year, which is basically like our 3 community days combined. We asked patrons to submit their photos taken during Pleasant Valley Weekend to us or tag us in them to win a Dunkin' Donuts gift card. We had 10 entries, which I was actually floored by because I wasn't expecting anything, and a lot of positive feedback from the community. This is our winning post that we shared, and I asked in the description if people would like to see more contests like this in the future, and somebody specifically commented, "Keep the contests coming," and I was like, yes, okay. And the person who won was very excited to win, and it was just a really positive experience. One thing that I did discover is that if a patron has their profile set to private and tags us in a photo, we can't see it. And I was panicking when I figured this out. So in the future, I would definitely ask patrons to send us photos in a message on Instagram instead, just to ensure that we can see all the entries. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why a library Instagram account matters. The goal of your library's Instagram account is to find new ways to connect with patrons and the community as a whole. An Instagram account probably won't drastically increase your circulation or program attendance, but it will insert your library into your patrons' daily lives in a positive way. For example, a patron liked our account. They owe us a lot of money and haven't used their card since 2007, but they regularly interact with our content, and I think this is awesome. This is just one example of how we're connecting with our patrons and the people in our community in a way that provides them with a positive experience with the library. The way I like to think about it is that patrons and local businesses and organizations basically have formed this virtual online community already, and they're already on there interacting with each other and liking and commenting and having conversations. And libraries are often said to be the pillars and centers of their communities. So I think the entire point of a library Instagram account is to make your library the center of your online community, not just the real community. And that's all I have.
Courtney, that was an awesome point that it's not just about in real life, but there's also a whole virtual life that people have going on that's very much embedded in their everyday. So I think your point is well taken, that community is often where you find it, and more people are finding their community online in channels and streams like Instagram. So thank you for doing such a great job of demonstrating how you've become part of that stream and part of other people's everyday and really become, part of that conversation, not someone who's just pushing information to them, but inviting them to be a part of all of the goodness that's coming out of your library. So thank you so much for that summary of what you're doing at Pleasant Valley.
No problem.
So I have a few questions for you guys. I hope you've got a little more time to spend with me and answer some of my questions.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. I want to start with Daniela because when I wanted to feature you guys on the series, I immediately reached out to Daniela and I pitched my idea of wouldn't it be cool if we feature the Pleasant Valley Library and what a great job you're doing in the Instagram account. And Daniela, you immediately were like, but I don't actually do that. Why would you want me to speak about that? And I really wanted to ask you what your philosophy is behind having this Instagram account for the library and, what your level of involvement is as the director of the library.
Well, I have to be honest, Courtney came to me first. I tend not to be a user of social media. I don't really have an online presence, but certainly Mid-Hudson has always told us that it was important to be out there. And I was lucky enough that Courtney was enthusiastic and had focused on it when she was getting her degree. So she said, could I do a library Instagram account? I know we do Facebook already, but I'm really looking to do something different. And because our Facebook is primarily, just as Courtney said, to post content, like here's our program flyer, here's our newsletter, I said, okay, sure, let's try something different. And as you said in the beginning, Rebecca, the Instagram is the primary users of the social media tend to be a younger generation. And it also tends to be the generation that we librarians lament constantly are not engaging with the library, that we lose them after high school until they grow older and have kids, and then they need a story time, and then they come back. So what better way to stay relevant in their lives, whether they're using us or not? And that way, when they go to the polls, when they think about things, when they have questions, we've stayed in the back of their minds, even if they're not walking through the door. So the fact that I was able to have Courtney do it is, I think, the reason that it's so popular, because you need someone who's passionate about it. You know, I don't make it a priority in my life, and I think social media is immediate. It's immediate gratification. You need someone who maybe isn't even in the building, but, you know, doesn't mind interacting with patrons in a moment by moment fashion. You know, a patron comments on an Instagram post, you can't wait till your shift on the desk Tuesday at 4:30. You have to be willing to answer it, you know, while you're out with friends, or when you're at your second job. And luckily, Courtney's able to do that. So I would say the key is make it important and make the person who's in charge of it feel like they own it, like they don't have to run things by you. I get nervous a lot with social media. I'm afraid something inappropriate is going to come up, or someone's going to do something, and you know, did we run it by our social media policy? But I empowered Courtney to be the one to make the call. And so that way there's, you know, she doesn't have to run it by me before she responds. She feels empowered to do it and enthusiastic about doing it. And I think that that's where our success comes from, picking the right person.
Danielle, you touched on two things that really stood out to me. The fact that you really, even though you're not a user of social media, you seem to really understand how it works, that you've got to be in it to win it. Like, you've got to be just part of that world in order to interact in it in a meaningful way. And the idea that you've really found the right staff person and empowered them, you know, you've given parameters. You mentioned you have a policy and there's parameters there, and you've built trust with your staff person over time. I think that's an excellent lesson for other directors who are thinking about how to up their game in this environment. The other thing you mentioned that really struck me was when you mentioned how the kind of like the Holy Grail are people in this age group of 18 to 29, the millennial generation. And I just wanted to share that when I was pulling the stats from the Pew Research Center about, you know, who uses Instagram and what demographics is it particularly popular with, another report that they have recently issued indicates that the very same generation, the millennials, are the top generation that supports libraries right now. So when we think about how critical it is to target them and to make sure we are relevant and part of their lives in terms of, as you mentioned, Daniela, making sure they show up to vote for us when it matters, it's a really clean connection that this is a venue in which they want to be communicated within, and you guys have found a path in which to do so, which is why it's so impressive in terms of the results that you're getting from this venue, which leads me to a question I have for you, Courtney. You said, seriously, I wrote down like 20 things while you were talking that just so stood out to me about how important the analytics are to what you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about how you use the analytics to fine tune what you do in the future when you're posting to make sure you are connecting with people?
Sure. Simply Measured is really great because it tells you like what filters are most popular, and things like that. And it also compares videos and photos. And one of the things I found out is that videos tend to not really get as many likes. Sometimes they can get a lot of views, but I found that typically people like our photos better than our videos. It's been really great also in helping me keep track of our progress to make sure we're continually growing. It provides a user to interaction percentage, and ours this time was like 500% or something. It was ridiculous. So it helps me keep track of what's popular and also to ensure that we're doing a really good job continuously and that I'm not like falling behind or anything like that. There are a lot of analytic sites out there that you can pay for. I use a free one that's pretty basic, but there are definitely a lot of options that you can get really in depth with.
And Courtney, I just want to make sure I got that right. The free analytics tool that you're using is called Simply Measure. Is that correct?
Simply Measured. Yeah.
Simply Measured with a D at the end. All right, cool.
Yes.
Excellent. So can you talk a little bit, Courtney, about how you mentioned you're engaging with local groups? So did you kind of like, when you got into Instagram on behalf of the library, just kind of start searching to see who else in the community was on Instagram that you could connect with?
Yeah, pretty much. I started out by liking like all the libraries in the Mid-Hudson library system, and then I actually found this user. It's called HV Local for Hudson Valley Local, And they've really taken off too. I think we kind of started at around the same time. But I actually went on theirs, and there's a whole bunch of local businesses that like them. And I was like, well, I'll like you too. And then they liked us back. So we're connected with a lot of local businesses around the Hudson Valley now because of that. And it's nice because when you follow somebody, Instagram recommends other people that you might like to follow. So I've found a lot of people to follow and local businesses through that way too. It's just all about searching.
Uh-huh. So Daniela, I wonder if I can put you on the spot again and ask from where you sit as the director. You know, it sounds like you came to an understanding that Instagram was something to give a try, and you empowered Courtney to do so. From where you sit, what benefits have you found from engaging with people through social media beyond what the already brilliant point you made about capturing the millennials in terms of future voters? Has anything else come out of this effort at your library where you have made the management decision to have Courtney continue to do this work?
Well, as we said, I'm a little cynical when it comes to social media, and I tend to have the stodgy librarian stereotype that everything we do has to stand the test of time. And I've really, what this social media and Courtney's presence on it has taught me is that it really isn't about that. You don't buy the book because it's going to be taking up space on your shelf for 100 years and it's a classic. You buy the book because that's what people are interested in right now, and you need to stay relevant. And so Instagram, here today, gone tomorrow, I don't know. Will it go the way of, there'll be Snapchat, there'll be something else. But the important point is that you have to engage in that moment. You have to be relevant. You don't have to worry about being relevant 20 years from now. If you're not relevant today, it won't matter 20 years from now. And so if this is what people are doing now, this is what we have to do now. And then we'll adapt as time goes on. I haven't studied enough statistics to know, if what goes on online has a reaction inside. I can tell you that certainly the most stressful part of my September was the eclipse. When the eclipse was happening, every day in the library, someone was talking about it, asking about it, yelling about why we didn't have enough glasses for everyone. So it was nice to have something positive. I guess what I want to say is the experience in the library in terms of engagement matched what was going on with our social media. So there was a reflection between what people were doing in the online community and what people were doing within the library, but they were two very different things. I found that everything going on online in Instagram about the library was positive, whereas the people who were maybe in the library or even on Facebook were tilting a little negative. What can you do for me? Why don't you have it? Instead, on Instagram, it was, oh, this is great, and this is positive, and loving the eclipse, and hashtag awesome. So in a certain sense, I found it to be more positive online than it was maybe in the library. And we had displays up about, we had different displays on the eclipse and books that people could check out. And so it was just like 3 points of people in the library, people from home, materials that people could check out, and they all kind of talked to each other, but in different ways. So it was really good for me to see that our #1 engagement was the same thing that was happening in the library. They weren't these completely disconnected worlds. They were just different ways to talk to different parts of the community about the same thing.
Danielle, I wish you could see me right now because I just want to high five you so bad. That was fantastic because I think your point about it, staying relevant in the moment, regardless of, what's going to happen a year from now with social media. The point is people are there now and they want to engage with you there today. And so your point that, it's there, let's get it done, let's do it right, is awesome. And to hear that you're making those correlations between, what you see in real life and what we're seeing in virtual life, the truth is they're kind of the same thing. And they're really enmeshed today. So libraries that want to be better connected to their community need to understand that there are conversations happening with or without them online, and you might as well be a part of it and make it a positive experience. So I just want to end by thanking you guys so much for taking the time this morning to share your story and your philosophy and some of your tips. Courtney, you are a master Instagram user, and we just want to thank you both so much for sharing your expertise.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to show everyone that just because you're not a big fan of something doesn't mean it's not really important that your library do it and that you pick the right person to do it.
Aw, you've totally gotten rid of the curmudgeon attitude about this. I love it, Daniela.
Yeah.